Ready? So on that fateful evening, I was sitting at my desk just as I am now. I was busy working and I felt my feet getting wet. I looked down and within minutes, water had flooded the entire floor. I got up to investigate immediately and ran through to the garage section and saw water coming in through the sides. 20 minutes later, the water was knee-high. I tried to save as much as I could, my computers, paperwork, all the important things, and then it hit me. I realized that I couldn't save the one thing that was the most important to me in the basement. My curing setup, my chamber, and all the projects that I'd been working on for years. Everything was gone in a flash. And it was honestly like somebody had kicked me in the gut. I rushed out. I came running into the garden and realized everything was underwater. So I started looking and I came all the way here and saw some bubbling. But as I was walking here, right at this spot, I literally sunk into the ground right here. I had to crawl out. It was actually, in retrospect, it was actually quite dangerous. And the emergency services told us afterwards that the pipe that runs through our yard is a water mains, and the force at which it pumps the water through there is so severe that that's why our property flooded so quickly. And when I told them that I'd fallen in, they were saying to me that I was so lucky that I didn't actually injure myself or get sucked into it. But anyway, this is the point of origin. And so this entire area, right through into the property next door, that was all covered, right up to the road. Everything here was covered in water. And as I now walk closer to the basement, you will notice that there is a cavity here, and the water was filled up to the level of this wall over here. So it was waist high. And this door was closed, so the water was backed up against it and flooding in through the sides of this garage door here. But I've now opened it, and this here is the area where I had my curing set up. So my chamber was against this wall over here with all the electronics and everything there. I had all my gear on these shelves. Luckily the gear that was on the top shelves didn't get damaged, but basically everything up to this shelf was completely damaged. And this entire area flooded literally within 20 minutes, up to waist high. Hi, I'm Gil Ferreira from the Curesmith, and this is the From Zero documentary. In this series, I've decided to document the process of me building up my entire curing environment from scratch after losing it in a flood in 2024. And I want to take you on this journey with me to take you through all the nuances, technicalities, and little things that I've learned along my 20 years of curing to help you build up your curing environment and your curing hobby for the future. But let me get back to the story. The hard part was that the insurance didn't cover the loss, so there was no quick replacement. We had to focus on our house repairs and getting life back to normal. And curing, the thing I loved, became something I completely avoided. Before I realized, more than a year had passed and I'd done nothing. No projects, absolutely no filming, no teaching. I didn't even write my book. It just stopped. I also neglected my Facebook group. We had built it up to around 39,000 members, and after the flood, I just disappeared. Late in 2025, I checked back in and the activity was almost gone. That made me really sad because it was a strong group when it was alive and I really enjoyed interacting there. So I started dipping my toe back into the forums and groups I'd always been part of, reading what people were asking, seeing what people were struggling with, and that's when the penny dropped. The problems I was seeing, the failures, the confusion, the myths, they were all the same problems I had when I started. And they're the same problems I helped people with when I was still active. So I realized something. The flood had forced me back to zero, but that's exactly where most people are when they start. And instead of pretending I'm fully set up, I'm going to rebuild in public, and I'm going to do it in a way that helps you build properly too. And that's exactly what this series is about. It's about building up from zero. A quick background so you know where I'm coming from. I started curing meat back in 2004. I actually started because I wanted to smoke meat. My first smoker was a welded drum smoker my dad helped me build. and I even rigged a kettle barbecue as a firebox for cold smoking. It was very crude, but it worked really well, and it taught me something early on. You learn faster when you build, test, and observe. Then I tried to make bacon for the first time. I followed a recipe that called for pink salt, and at the time I thought it meant Himalayan pink salt. I got lucky, nothing went wrong, but it taught me a serious lesson. Curing is not a craft where you can wing it. I'm originally from South Africa, and back then there wasn't much artisan dry curing culture locally, so my learning was trial and error, books and research. By 2013, I was butchering pigs specifically for charcuterie cuts. I built a small walk-in maturing chamber, and I started producing more meat than what we could eat. And that is what drove me to go commercial. I ended up doing farmers markets, supplying restaurants, delis and hotels, and my wife and I even opened a small coffee shop fronting our production kitchen for the cured meats. But the part I loved most wasn't the selling, it was teaching. I ran multiple courses a year helping people make quality cured meats at home, and that's really where my passion for this craft shifted, from making to help other people make. In mid-2019, we moved to Europe. My wife is Polish, so we settled in Poland. I downsized again, moving into an apartment, so I could only build a small curing chamber out of an upright fridge, and I came full circle back to being a hobbyist. Then in 2020, I started writing a book aimed at helping people produce quality cured meats from home, starting from a normal kitchen. By early 2024, I had the manuscript largely complete. All it needed was some editing, but it was there. And then the flood happened, and I just put everything down. So here's what From Zero is not. It's not a single 30-minute how-to where I start a cure and then suddenly pull out a finished prosciutto a year later. This is a staged journey. Because the truth is, the meats people are most attracted to, things like prosciutto, culatello, fermented cured sausages, and the like, those are the most technical projects in the whole craft. If you start there, you can spend months before you'll discover you've made a basic mistake. That's why so many people get disheartened and quit from this craft. So we're going to do this properly. We're going to build competence and control first, and then we go advanced. Let me outline how the series will run. I'm doing it in stages so we stay structured without locking ourselves into a fixed number of episodes. The important thing is that we will go about this in the right way. We will learn to crawl before we walk, before we run. I know everybody wants to get to the sexy stuff like prosciutto and dry cured sausages, but those are very technical and time-consuming cures. And the last thing you want is to put a bunch of effort to waste 6 months and find you have a flop on your hands. So if you're going to walk this path with me, I'm going to ask you to click the subscribe button so you know when I post new episodes. So let's look at the stages now. Stage 1 is the science behind curing. Don't worry, I'm not going to bore you. I will just highlight the most important aspects so that you understand what is truly happening inside the meat. I skipped this part when I first started, and it cost me a lot of time and product. Stage 2 is critical ingredients and the safety tools. We'll cover things like cure number 1, cure number 2, salt, and how to think about them responsibly without myths and without fear. Stage 3 is equipment, without overspending. What you can do with the normal kitchen equipment you already have, what you should buy later, and how to avoid wasting money on equipment you don't really need. Stage 4 is where we start curing immediately without a chamber. Things like bacon, brining, and short cures that teach technique, but in the shortest amount of time so we can know the techniques for when we're ready to make the sexy stuff. In stage 5, we move into small whole muscles, things like duck breast prosciutto, filetto, then up to pancetta and coppa, and I'll show you where in my basement I'll be doing that without a dedicated built maturing chamber. Stage 6 is sausage and smoke. Fresh sausages first, then cold smoking, then hot smoking, because technique matters and we build skill in the right order. Stage 7 starts shifting a gear. We start building the maturing chamber, sourcing the right refrigerator, controllers, looking at humidity, airflow, temperature, and stability testing. We're going to do this together and do it right to understand what the best conditions for maturing our meat will be. And then stage 8, we move on to larger muscles, the bridge between basic projects and the advanced end of the craft. And finally, Stage 9 is dry cured and fermented sausages, the most technical stage, where all the fundamentals finally come together. And then we will take it from there. I do just want to invite you to send me your questions at any time during this process. I'm always happy to help. This series is for beginners, but it's also for people who've been making cured meats for years and still feel like they're guessing. My aim is simple. I want you to understand what's happening to the meat. I want you to know what matters, what doesn't, and how to make decisions with confidence. In the next episode, I'll explain the full roadmap visually, and I will also explain some handy tools I've developed and put on the Curesmith website at www.thecuresmith.com. If you want to follow the journey, subscribe. And if you're watching this and you've got questions you want me to cover, leave them in the comments or send them to me from the website form. One request though, please give me as much detail as you possibly can. Tell me what you're making, the weight of the meat, the salt percentage, whether you've used cure number 1 or cure number 2, your temperature, humidity, and what the symptoms are. The details are what making curing either frustrating or predictable. Right. Let's rebuild this properly from zero. See you back in episode 2.